So let's talk about quarterly execution planning for a moment. We've talked about it in the context of repeatable processes. It is a repeatable process. It sits in this section of the trail markers, but it's really important in terms of understanding what's going on. So what are the key steps? What do we need to do to create a quarterly execution plan? So quarterly execution plan is based on an annual execution plan. Whatever we do in the annual execution plan, we trim it down into the quarterly. So one of the things we're not doing in the quarterly execution plan is questioning the annual vision or the 3-year vision or whatever. We're not doing that. Okay. So the idea is we're still moving towards that bigger picture. We still have our purpose. We still have our values. We still have our operating principles, all those sorts of things. They stay as they are. The QEP does not touch those. In fact, that's a place where we really reinforce and remind this is the journey we've agreed to be on, and this is what we're doing. So we need to plan for this. And so that's the first piece. So the first part of a QEP or the quarterly execution plan, it's usually a session, obviously with a report that comes out of it afterwards. The first thing is obviously looking at where have we come from in the last quarter. Okay. And so we want to look at successes, and we want to look at things that didn't work out, and we want to understand why. We take a couple of hours to look through what was our last QEP? What was our last plan, and how did we go? Did we win? And so the idea is, as you'll see, as you go through this process, there's no surprises here. The only thing you don't know is maybe the last 2 weeks. And so what we're getting to is we're saying, okay, this is what we did well. This is where we need to adapt. One of the things that I tend to allow at the quarterly execution plan is we will review the annual objectives and say, are they good? I just did this today with a client where we looked at the annual objectives and we said, look, maybe they're a bit too big. And so and I've been with clients where we've adjusted, outcomes down, or we've adjusted them up if we've been going really well. And so it's okay to have a look at the objectives that we set for the whole year. Obviously, we don't want to be doing that too often, because that means we're not really certain about where we're going. So then we would say, okay, what about the key results? How did they go this quarter? So first thing we're going to do is look at last quarter's key results and measure them up and ask the question, how did we do? Now, again, should be no surprises, because every 2 weeks, we've been doing an execution process to get to where we are today. The thing we might do at the QEP is just say, are we shooting too hard, or are we not shooting enough? Are we not strong enough? And we might adjust and adapt and say, okay, so next quarter, we're going to dial it up a little bit, or we really need to dial it back in terms of our key results. The third piece is really making sure that we're doing the right things. When we say doing the right things, we're not doing too much, we're not doing too little, and we're doing the stuff that's actually going to move the needle forward. So that would be the third piece. The fourth piece then is, and again, this depends if you're on your own or with a team or coach or whoever, is the fourth thing is you're going to say, okay, let's turn whatever my objectives and key results are for this quarter into 2-week sprints. And a sprint is basically just a much more manageable, chunkable space where we say, okay, in 2 weeks, I'm going to get this done. We lay out all the key results that we've agreed for that quarter into these 2-week sprints, because then that helps us go, oh, geez, I don't think I can do that every 2 weeks, or I've got plenty of time. Maybe we could ramp that up a little bit. Again, it's that little bit of adjusting. So then we get to the end of that. We basically said, okay, here's how we did. Here's what we're going to do this quarter. Yes, it's moving. We're obviously agreeing it moves us towards our annual objectives and key results. It moves us towards our annual success, which in turn should be moving us towards our multi-year success. And then we're going to say, okay, here's the steps I've got to do. I need to set 1 or 2 objectives for this quarter, not too many. I need to have some measurables in place, because that's going to dictate the stuff that I do. And then I'm going to say every 2 weeks, here's what I'm going to do to get to measure the stuff that I've said I need to do over the next 3 months. So that's pretty much a typical planning process. And all of that's just laid out just in a Word document. It's easy, but there are softwares out there you can use to help manage some of this. You can do barometer counters and see how you're going. So again, just stepping through, we want to take this down to, at least as far as we're concerned, we take it down to a 2-week sprint. You can then move that down to weekly as well if you want to. This is what I'm going to do this week. This is what I'm going to do next week. And you then would schedule that into your calendars. So that's the process of, we've got this big picture thing. We're now sitting at the quarterly. And then how do we take that and turn that into executables? So that would be your quarterly execution plan, is just laying all that out.